In October, a jury found Sean Grayson guilty of second-degree murder in the 2024 death of Sonya Massey. He faces up to 20 years in prison and is expected to serve at least half of that time. Body camera footage showed Grayson shot Massey after she said, quote, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," while lifting a pot of boiling water.
He told the state how long he had left. He put it in writing. In a document filed from a prison cell, Sean Grayson estimated that his illness would leave him incapacitated within 6 months, and that he'd be dead inside 18. He was wrong. He had 3 weeks. 3 weeks earlier, 3 people sat in a room in Springfield, Illinois, and voted on whether to let him go home and die there. They didn't argue. They didn't split. 3-0. He wasn't there to hear it. Neither were his lawyers. Nobody from his side showed up at all. But her family did. More than 20 of them. Her mother, her father, her son, her daughter, her cousin. They drove in, sat down at a table facing that panel, and took turns explaining why this man should die exactly where he was, because of what he'd written on that application. 2 years after he pulled the trigger, after a jury, after a judge, after a cell, he was still saying it. Still putting it in writing, still insisting that the woman he shot in the face had attacked him first. That's what her father couldn't forgive. And then on a Sunday around noon, it was over. 6 months into a 20-year sentence. 6 months out of 20 years. There's one more strange detail. The man sentenced in an Illinois courtroom did not die in an Illinois prison.
It didn't take long for the news of Sean Grayson's death to make the rounds on social media. The former Sangamon County deputy had served just a little more than 6 months of his 20-year sentence for killing Sonya Massey in her Springfield home in July of 2024. Soon, thousands online were reading about his passing, but Sonya Massey, her cousin, says no one thought to call the victim's family.
My cousin had saw it online, and my cousin in Texas, so we didn't even find out in Illinois until our cousin in Texas emailed us.
He and other members of the Massey family are demanding answers for why they weren't informed about Grayson's death from corrections officials or the state's attorney's office. He said he was put in a difficult position of having to confirm the information on his own before sharing it with the rest of the family.
They were pretty upset. They're still pretty upset.
12:50 in the morning, July 6, 2024. Sonya Massey, 36 years old, called 911 because she thought someone was trying to break into her home outside Springfield. A mother of 2. A woman who'd been forced to retire in her 30s because of lupus and stage 5 kidney disease. In the days before that call, she'd been going through a mental health crisis. She was frightened, so she called the people you're supposed to call. 2 Sangamon County Sheriff's deputies came out. They searched. They found nothing. No prowler, no intruder, no threat anywhere outside that house. Then they came inside. The body cam footage that the country would eventually see begins with something that's hard to sit through. Sonya, at her own door, asking the deputies not to hurt her. One of them tells her he doesn't want to hurt her. She's the one who called. 20 minutes later, he shot her. Inside, Grayson noticed a pot of water on her stove and told her to move it. She did what he asked. And then she said 7 quiet words that a whole country would hear within weeks. "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." He answered her with profanity and a threat. She apologized. She ducked down behind her own kitchen counter, covering her face. He fired 3 times. She was struck in the face. She was pronounced dead at St. John's Hospital at 1:47 in the morning. An autopsy ruled it a homicide. Now here's the detail that shaped everything after. Grayson's own body camera wasn't activated for most of that encounter. The footage that convicted him came from his partner's camera. That partner was Dawson Farley. Same kitchen, same woman, same distance. He later testified he did not consider Sonya Massey a threat, and that he only drew his weapon after Grayson drew his. Prosecutors told the court one more thing. After the shot, Grayson declined to render medical aid. So the question was never what happened. It was on video. The question was why this deputy, out of every deputy in that county, was standing in her kitchen with a gun. The answer went back 8 years, to an Army base in Kansas. Sean Grayson enlisted in the Army in 2014. He never deployed. He was a wheeled vehicle mechanic, and he left in February of 2016 as a private first class. He didn't just leave. Documents later obtained from one of the police departments that hired him show what was written on his discharge paperwork. Misconduct, serious offense. Army officials confirmed his dates of service. They declined to say what the serious offense was. He also had 2 drunk driving convictions in Peoria County. One in 2015, one in 2016. One happened while he was still on active duty, the other came after he was out. None of it stopped him. Over the next 4 years, Sean Grayson worked for 6 different law enforcement agencies in central Illinois. Part-time in Pawnee, Kincaid, and Verdon, then the Auburn Police Department, then the Logan County Sheriff's Office, and in May of 2023, the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. At Logan County, he was the subject of 2 separate complaints, one from a woman who said she was left feeling violated during her arrest, another accusing him of harassing her fiancé during a jail visit after she filed that first complaint. Both were marked unfounded in his file. 6 departments, 4 years, a serious misconduct discharge sitting in the paperwork the entire time. And none of this surfaced because a supervisor caught it. It surfaced because reporters dug it out. Sam Stecklow and Farah Anderson of the Invisible Institute, working with Illinois Public Media and the Investigative Reporting Workshop, were the first to publish his record. When the county was asked how a man like that ended up on a night shift with a badge, the sheriff had an answer. Sheriff Jack Campbell said his office did have the Army records showing the discharge for serious misconduct. But those records never said what the misconduct was. So they assumed it meant the drunk driving. And the basis for that assumption was a reference letter from Grayson's own commanding officer, saying that aside from the DUI, he'd had no other issues. Campbell wrote publicly that past DUI convictions aren't disqualifying and that people can change. Asked later whether that reference letter was even accurate, the single document the whole assumption rested on. Campbell told Illinois Times he had no idea. A former Air Force prosecutor named Anthony Giotto put the obvious point on the record. It was extremely unlikely, he said, that a misdemeanor drunk driving conviction would produce a serious misconduct discharge from the Army. Jack Campbell eventually retired. Sonya Massey didn't get that option. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most people scrolling past this story never will. That she didn't die because of one bad second. She died because of 6 departments and 8 years of paperwork nobody read. Subscribing costs you nothing. Staying uninformed cost her everything. Grayson was fired. He was indicted on first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. He pleaded not guilty. His lawyers made one very smart move early. They asked to move the trial out of Sangamon County, arguing the coverage had poisoned the jury pool. They won. The trial moved about 100 miles away to Peoria County. It ran from October 20th to October 29th, 2025. 8 days. Grayson testified in his own defense, telling the jury he believed Sonya Massey was about to scald him with that pot of water, and that he took her words as a threat. Then the jury went out. Almost 7 hours, the first day, and nothing. They came back the next morning and kept going, more than 11 hours in total. And then they returned something almost nobody predicted. Guilty of second-degree murder, not guilty of first-degree murder. Understand exactly what that means because most people get it wrong. The jury did not find him innocent of murder. They found that his conduct met the standard for first-degree murder, and then found that his belief he was acting in self-defense was a mitigating factor. Not a justification, a mitigation. They rejected his self-defense claim as lawful. They just refused to call it cold. The gap between those 2 verdicts was enormous. First degree carried a mandatory 45 years to life. Second degree carried 4 to 20, with the possibility of serving only half, and left the judge free to hand down probation. No prison at all. The courtroom went silent when it was read. Grayson barely moved. He held his hands out, was cuffed, and walked away while his family cried in the gallery. Outside, Sonya's family said plainly they weren't satisfied. They'd wanted first degree. Now they wanted the maximum. And they had 3 months to wait, while the defense built an argument that had nothing to do with what happened in that kitchen. An argument about Sean Grayson's body.
It seems like people went to great lengths to kind of hide where he was and hide what he was doing and hide who was helping him. And that opened up a lot of questions for us. So who's been helping him? Who's been making sure that he's comfortable? I mean, this man is a killer. Was a killer.
Grayson's death hasn't brought much comfort to the Massey family. Sante says justice would have been Grayson serving out his term. Now he's left with unanswered questions, while his family continues to process the grief that came with losing Sonya.
Here's the fact that changes how you see all of it. Sean Grayson was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2023, a year before he ever knocked on Sonya Massey's door. He knew. He was already sick when he walked into that house. On January 29th, 2026, his attorney, Mark Wyckoff, stood in a Springfield courtroom and laid out how far it had spread. The disease had reached his liver, his rectum, his lungs, stage 4. Wyckoff asked for 6 years. The state asked for the maximum. Judge Ryan Cadogan had already denied a motion for a new trial that morning. Then he took apart the health argument, ruling that no evidence showed. The medical care Grayson would get in state prison would be worse than what he'd been receiving in the county jail. Grayson spoke before the sentence came down. He said he'd made a lot of mistakes that night, that he'd been very unprofessional, that he wished he could bring her back, that he wished her family didn't have to go through it, and that he was very sorry. He said he understood their anger and hoped one day they could forgive him. Then the judge answered him, reminding Grayson, in open court, that he had said he was going to shoot her in the face, and then he did. 20 years. The maximum the law allowed. 2 years of supervised release after, with credit for time served. The family erupted. A cheer went up from 6 packed rows, many of them wearing purple, Sonya's favorite color, and the judge had to admonish them for it. Her mother, Donna Massey, had already taken the stand and given her daughter's words back to the man who killed her. Sean Grayson, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Her son, Malachi Hill Massey, told the court his soul was ripped. Her daughter, Summer, 15 when her mother was killed, 16. That day, spoke to reporters afterward. She said she was grateful for the maximum. Then she said the other thing. 20 years is not enough. But they did what they could do. She was more right than she knew. Under Illinois statute, that sentence would be served at 50%, 10 years. That was the real number. And 4 months later, his lawyers filed a document that could have cut it to 0. Illinois has a law called the Joe Coleman Medical Release Act. It lets people in custody apply for early release if they're terminally ill, or if a condition leaves them medically incapacitated. In May of 2026, Sean Grayson applied. In that filing, he made his own case in clinical terms. He said the cancer would likely leave him incapacitated within 6 months and dead within 18. He said he'd been hospitalized for at least a month over the past year, but acknowledged he could still feed and dress himself. And in that same application, he still maintained that Sonya Massey had attacked him. The hearing was set for July 31st. More than 24 demonstrators stood outside the Prisoner Review Board building that morning, asking that he stay behind bars. Inside, the Massey family sat directly in front of a 3-person panel: Jared Boland, Roger Heaton, and Robin Schaffner. Grayson didn't attend. Neither did his lawyers. Sangamon County State's Attorney John Milheiser sent a letter to the board making one blunt point. Grayson had already been diagnosed with cancer when he shot Sonya Massey. Cancer, he wrote, does not make him any less dangerous. Then James Wilburn spoke, Sonya's father. He said people had told him that as an act of compassion, Grayson should be allowed to die surrounded by family and friends. And he answered them. My baby didn't have a chance to die amongst her family and friends. The panel deliberated privately, then voted in public. 3-0. Denied. It wasn't final either. He could apply again, as many times as he wanted. Her cousin, Sonya Massey, said it out loud that day. The family was relieved, but this was a small win in an uphill fight because Grayson could come back again and again. He believed Grayson wouldn't stop until he got out. Sonya was right that he'd try again. He just never got the chance. On Sunday, August 23, 2026, Sean Grayson died. He was 32. His trial attorney, Daniel Fultz, confirmed it, saying his client died around noon and declining to say anything more. He died from the cancer. That's the account given by attorneys on both sides and reported across national outlets, and the timeline speaks for itself. What has not been released is a formal cause of death. The Illinois Department of Corrections didn't respond to immediate questions about the time and manner of it. They did confirm one thing, though. Grayson was being held at a facility outside of Illinois. Ben Crump and Antonio Romanucci, the attorneys for Sonya Massey's family, responded that same evening. Her death, they said, was unjustifiable and she should be alive today. Grayson's death in custody from cancer does not bring her back. They wished his family peace, as they would for anyone grieving. And they noted that Sonya's family knows that particular pain and will carry it the rest of their days. No celebration, no triumph, just people who understand the cost better than anyone else. Sonya Massey's name is on a law now. Illinois passed the Sonya Massey Act, requiring agencies to more closely review an applicant's previous employment records before hiring an officer. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed it, and it took effect at the beginning of this year. 6 departments in 4 years? That's the exact pipeline it was written to close. In early 2025, Sangamon County reached a $10 million settlement with her family. The county, the sheriff's office, and Central Dispatch also entered an agreement with the Department of Justice covering enhanced de-escalation training, expanded crisis response programs, better tracking of use of force data, and reviews of policing and community engagement policies. One thing her father wanted never happened. After sentencing, James Wilburn said he wanted Grayson charged federally for violating his daughter's civil rights. Those charges never came. Stories like this get 1 week of attention, and then they're gone, and the families are left standing in the quiet after. Everyone stops watching. If you think Sonya Massey's name deserves to outlive the news cycle, subscribe. It's the smallest possible way to make sure the next one doesn't get buried. Because here's where the arithmetic leaves us. Sean Grayson was sentenced to 20 years. On paper, that was 10. In reality, it was 6 months. He told the state he had 18 months to live and used that number to ask for his freedom. He was denied. He died anyway. Just not at home. Sonya Massey got 36 years, and a phone call at 12:50 in the morning to people she believed were coming to protect her. This video is based on court proceedings, public records, and reporting from the Associated Press, NPR, CBS News, NBC News, and the Invisible Institute. All quoted statements come from open court, public hearings, or published statements by the parties involved. Attorneys for both Sean Grayson and the Massey family have attributed his death to cancer. As of publication, no official cause of death has been released by authorities, and this video makes no independent claim as to what it was.